Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. So today we're going to be talking about email marketing mostly for small businesses. So I'll dive right in. So before we get started, I thought I'd introduce myself. So I'm Clara, really pleased to be here today. I'm super passionate about helping small businesses grow through email marketing. I run my own email marketing consultancy, and I mostly work with passionate solopreneurs and startups. I'm also a certified executive coach and mentor. I live in Watford with my partner David and my cat Bonnie, and I'm really excited to be here. So just a little bit about my journey as to kind of my background and how I got to where I am today. So my background's mostly been in CRM, email, loyalty, retention for some well-established brands that you might recognise. So the Expedia Group, Monsoon Accessorize, Photobox, Money Supermarket. I also deliver keynote speeches from very small audiences up to 3,000. I also contribute to key digital marketing textbooks on the subject of email marketing. So today we're going to be going through why is email marketing important for your business, the most commonly asked questions, and my 5 top tips. So I'd like to start with a quick poll, a straw poll here. I'd love to know of everyone on the call, who is currently sending email marketing campaigns to their customers or clients? If you could drop a note in the chat, just love to get a sense of how many of you are actually currently doing this. So if you can just put a yes or no in the chat, or shout out.
The chat now.
So who currently sends email marketing campaigns to their customers?
I will start off with Hertfordshire Growth Hub. We always do. We do a lot around email marketing.
Now that's really good to know. So what today's session will be around is for those of you that it's kind of catered for both audiences. So for those of you that want to get started but haven't had the chance to, and for those that are already up and running. And then for those of you who don't use email marketing, what is stopping you? Is it A, lack of time? Is it B, lacking the know-how to get started? Is it C, prioritizing social media? Is it D, all of the above? Or is it E, none of the above? Feel free to shout out if you don't want to use the chat function, but I'd love to know, for those of you who don't use email marketing, what is stopping you? Is it A, lack of time? B, lack of know-how to get started? C,
Can you hear everybody? Clara, you've gone on to mute. Are you back now? Can you hear, Clara? You're here now.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. So
okay.
Yeah, so the question here is, for those of you who don't use email marketing, what is stopping you? Typically, we find that majority of people have a combination of lack of time, lack of know-how, and prioritizing social media. So feel free to drop in the chat where you feel you sit in each of these groups. I'd love to know, are your most loyal customers 50% more likely to buy from you than a new customer? True or false? I can't seem to see the chat responses, so feel free to shout out. Are your most loyal customers 50% more likely to buy from you than a new customer? True or false? The answer is actually true. So your most loyal customers are 50% more likely to buy from you than a new customer. So this is really important in terms of how much we spend to acquire a new customer. Next quiz question is, what gives you the best return on investment, email marketing or social media? A or B? So the answer here is actually email marketing, and I'll go through that in a bit more detail in the deck today. And then it costs 6 to 7 times more to land a new customer than it does to keep your current customers. True or false? So it's actually true. So it does cost 6 to 7 times more to land a new customer than it does to keep current customers. So that's incredibly expensive for us business owners. So let's dive in. So why is email marketing important for your business? Well, did you know that there are 4.2 billion email users worldwide? And this is set to grow. It's predicted to rise to 4.6 billion by 2025. And that's only 2 years away. Did you know that 96% of consumers check emails every day? When was the last time you looked at your emails? It was highly likely it was at some point today. So we're constantly checking our emails, and it's something that we have built in as part of our kind of routine habits. Did you know that the open rate for mobile reached 81%? And I'm certain this has now surpassed this number. We're constantly checking our emails on the go, despite the fact that we have busy lives. We're constantly checking in. And did you know that 60% of consumers report making a purchase after receiving a promotional email? So we obviously have Black Friday coming up, and this is a time of year that we typically get bombarded by lots and lots of emails. However, if it's done correctly, we can drive sales through promotional emails, through email marketing, and we'll go through that later. So I want to give you a bit of a comparison here for social media versus email marketing, and I'll give you my take on social media afterwards, but essentially this is a comparison of the different metrics of social media versus email marketing. So the click-through rate is essentially anyone that's engaging with your social media posts, so whether it's commenting, liking, sharing, saving. And on average, we see a 0.07% average click-through rate on social media. For email marketing, we see an average of 2.5% click-through rate. So that's within the email, someone clicking through on any of the links contained within the email. In terms of return on investment, we see on average a 28% return on investment for social media. So what does that mean? It means that for anything we spend, any kind of ads or any kind of paid activity we do on Facebook, social media as a whole, we can expect to see a 28% return. For email marketing, that actually jumps up significantly. So if we think about spending money on email marketing, for every dollar we spend or every pound we spend, we can expect to see around £38 back as a return on investment. So that's a significant return for what we're investing within email marketing. In terms of possible reach, so with social media, we see around 2.8 billion users worldwide. And for email marketing, we've got 4.2 billion users worldwide. And remember, I said that that's set to grow. In terms of data, this is a really important point. So with social media, you don't own your follower data, you're renting it. But with email marketing, it's your own data, it's an asset to your business, and yeah, you're in full control. But I just want to put it out there that I don't dislike social media. In fact, I think it's essential and a great way to build brand awareness. And I think they actually play different roles. So done well, social media and email marketing work really, really well together. So how does that happen? So how does that work? Well, social media raises brand awareness, particularly for people that are unaware of your brand, your services, your products. So it's about reaching new markets. Whereas with email marketing, this is where we nurture those relationships and we convert them into a sale. So you might be thinking this sounds great, but right now I'm running my business. There's 101 different things I need to be doing. And you might be even feeling overwhelmed, confused, stressed, fearful that it's too complicated. Maybe you feel that the tech might sound really off-putting to you. You might be worried about the fact that there's another cost to add to your marketing efforts. What I want to say today is that it's much easier than you think to get started. So fundamentally, email marketing is all about building relationships and a connection with your audience. So let's look at some reasons to start sending emails. So first of all, it's one of the most cost-effective ways to help grow your business due to the low marketing costs for email marketing. And many of you who are either solopreneurs or small businesses, email marketing is, for the majority of you, going to be free to get started. Once we start to hit 1,000 subscribers and up, we start to then pay for the platform. However, there's an awful lot available to you for free. It's easier to sell other products and services to your customers because they trust you. So remember, they've taken an action to actually sign up to hear from you and receive your newsletters. So there's positive intent there because they are engaging with your brand. And also they're getting to know more about the other products and services that you offer. And remember, satisfied customers act as brand advocates and build brand awareness. So for those of your customers or clients that are super loyal to you, they're going to speak about your brand, and that's a great thing to shout out about in email marketing. And repeat customers are 50% more likely to purchase from you than a new customer. And what better way to nurture them than through email marketing? So I want to make this point here around your competitors. It's very likely that your competitors are already sending emails. And something here that I recommend doing, and this might sound controversial at first, but I think it can be very insightful, is to subscribe to your competitors' email marketing. And I want to stress that this is not to copy. This is not to copy. This is about getting inspired. It's about seeing what other people are talking about in your industry, in your sector, in the kind of business you run. And the idea behind this is to get you inspired to start thinking about how you can own a share of that voice within email marketing. So I highly recommend signing up to your competitor email newsletters just to see what they're talking about. It's not too late to get started, and email marketing can be one of your biggest assets. It can generate revenue while you sleep, and it's easier than you think. So I'm going to share some most commonly asked questions here, and they might be questions that you have or you might have in mind or you might want to raise. So if your question isn't covered here, please feel free to drop a question in the chat, or we have some time afterwards for Q&A. So how to get started? Do I need a website to get started? The answer is no, you do not need a website to get started. So a lot of people have a misconception here that they need to have everything lined up and ready and have everything kind of in order before they think about email marketing. When in fact, you might be launching your website. It could take months. Sometimes it can take, up to 6 months to finalize a website. And in that time, you've lost the chance to grow your list. So you only need a simple landing page where you collect an email address, and a lot of the email platforms out there allow you to do this within their platform for free. An example of a platform that does offer this is MailerLite, where they allow you to build a landing page. It's very, very easy to set up, and you can start collecting email addresses. So particularly for those of you that are completely new to business, or you've been established for several years but you don't have any kind of email list, I recommend you get something simple set up. If you already have a website, I highly recommend creating some kind of pop-up or slide on to your website to capture data. So if you think about all the people visiting your website, how many of those are going to disappear and never come back? If we can capture even a small percentage of those visiting your website, we can start to build relationships with them. So it's really important we start to give people the opportunity to stay in touch. Another question or statement I get shared with me a lot is, I thought email marketing platforms were expensive. And the answer, and the truthful answer, is that if you have millions of people on your list, then you are going to be investing in much more sophisticated and powerful platforms. Some of the big businesses such as Uber, Expedia, you can spend a lot of money on these platforms because your subscribers are into the millions. However, for small businesses, the reality is that a lot of email platforms are free to get started. It's often based on number of subscribers. And as I mentioned earlier, that it's usually around the 1,000 mark where you start to get charged. Of course, it's not a flat rule, but generally speaking, that's when you start to get charged for running the platform. And I must state that even if you do start to pay, it's still very affordable in relation to other marketing channels. If you are very small as a business, you might have maybe 100 subscribers, or you might have a handful, then you can run email marketing for free. Another question I get asked about is, it sounds complicated to send an email. So this is where choosing the right platform is important. So I had a client recently who was on HubSpot. She's a solopreneur who runs a well-being business, and HubSpot was absolutely the wrong platform for her. It's much more suited to kind of medium to large size businesses because of the sophistication and the cost. So for smaller businesses, I recommend something really simple and easy to use, such as MailerLite. There are other platforms out there as well that you might want to think about using, such as ConvertKit, even ActiveCampaign. There are many kind of similar platforms more suited to small business owners. And once you get into these platforms, it's actually really intuitive and straightforward to send an email. But it is important you choose the right platform that suits your business goals and where you want to take your business. How do I know if I'm doing it right is another question I get asked a lot. So you might send an email out and you have no idea whether it's done well or not. Here's a couple of suggestions on how you can know if you're doing it right. So number one is, we'll start by sending the first email, so you have some kind of benchmark. And then what you should be looking at are things like your open rate. So how many people are actually opening your emails? How many people are clicking through, your click rate? And in some cases, if it leads on to maybe an e-commerce website, you can then see sales. The way you're going to know if you're doing it right is if you track your progress. So say you send a monthly email. Let's look back at the last 3 months and just see how your performance looks. If you see an upward trend where more and more people are opening, then you're doing it right. If you start to see drops in performance, then you might need to tweak the subject line, you might need to tweak the content, you might need to tweak your offer. So there's multiple reasons as to why your email may not be working, but you're going to know based on looking at your trends over the last 3, 6, 12 months how you're performing. I also get asked the question, should I benchmark against my industry? So if I'm a small fashion retailer, should I benchmark against fashion? I would say not initially, because those benchmarks are usually based on much larger businesses, and it can be off-putting if you're just starting out. So I would recommend you benchmark against yourself to begin with, because you're measuring your own progress in the beginning, and then you're going to start to see what and how your audience are interacting with your emails. So start off by measuring against yourself is the answer to this question. So let's dive into some actual tips here to help you get started and underway. So the first one I would always advise, and I work with a variety of different types of clients at different business stages, and even those that have been established further down the line, I always say to continue to build an email list. Why is this important? Well, it's so important to be bringing new people to your subscriber list, because as you start to grow, there are going to be people on your email list that may no longer need your services, may have their needs solved for now. They may have lost interest. There's a number of reasons why people drop off your subscriber list. So we always need a pipeline of new people coming in. And why is it important to start growing this now rather than later? Well, first of all, email builds trust, and that can take time. So we want to be ensuring that we build the trust between our audience and ourselves as businesses much earlier on. Remember, I said that you own your email list, so this is something that's in your full control. You don't have to answer to any algorithms. And with email marketing, you can personalize the emails based on what you know about your subscribers. And it's also one of the best ways to generate repeatable income, particularly if your clients or customers are happy with your services or products, they're most likely to come back again. So my top tip here is to start collecting email addresses as soon as possible, even if you don't have everything set up, because once you start to get a list together, you'll start to see that it is much easier to generate repeatable income from your email list rather than trying to acquire new customers. I have actually written a guide, which I'll share at the end, which is my guide on 10 powerful ways to build an email list. So I'll share that in a bit later. Number 2, I've said here, don't get caught up in which platform. So earlier I said, yeah, let's choose the right platform, but actually I've kind of whittled it down for you. The problem that some people have with email marketing platforms is they spend weeks trying to decide. Here are some platforms that I recommend that are suited for small businesses, and you're looking for something much more simple and easy to use to begin with. And the great thing about any of these free platforms is that you can start a trial and see if you like it. So you can try before you commit. And remember, I said that the majority of these are free before 1,000 subscribers. Particularly, MailerLite is particularly good for solopreneurs. For those of you on the call that are more established, and you might already be sending email marketing, and you might already have allocated budget, think about your future plans. So do you want to integrate with your website activity? Do you run a course? Do you have a membership that you are running as part of your business? One of the things to think about in those scenarios is then, do you want an all-in-one solution like HubSpot or Kartra, where you can have everything in one place? Now, although they might seem like a pricey option, if you add up all the other platforms that you might have run things separately on, it actually is a good investment. But I would only recommend HubSpot, Kartra, Kajabi, those types of platforms if you are a bit more established in your business and you are willing to invest in these platforms and seeing a return. So I've shared some platforms here that are suited to both small, those starting out, or fairly small businesses, to those that have those kind of clear business goals about where they want their business to be. Another question that comes up is, what content should I create? And this is not just true for email marketing, it's also true for social media and kind of most marketing channels. But so some of the ideas I have here and tips to share can also help you generate content for other marketing channels, but this tends to work really well for email marketing. So here I suggest to think about your ideal client and what content they would find engaging. So think about sharing industry insights, best practice, case studies, or relevant trends. Be informative, helpful, and concise. Avoid being overly promotional or sales focused. So that can be difficult to do if your business is purely discount driven. However, just be aware that if all you ever talk about is sales, then you're going to start to see a lot of people unsubscribe from your list if that's all you ever talk about, because it can be really off-putting. So depending on the type of business you run, think about what are the content pillars. So think of them as themes or categories that you're audience want to hear about. And if you're someone who's positioning yourself as an expert, such as a coach or a consultant, think about how you might want to build trust and credibility with your audience in the kind of content you're sharing. So this exercise is like a 5-minute exercise that can be super powerful in terms of coming up with lots of content. I do this a lot with my one-to-one clients, and it generates a huge amount of ideas. I obviously have more questions, but I thought I'd share some of them today. So the first question is, what topics do I get asked about all the time? In my line of work, what topics do I get asked about all the time? So put those down on a post-it note, because they're the questions that we can turn then into content. The next question is, what are the top trends in my industry? So for me, email marketing, one of the big trends at the moment is talking about getting caught in spam folders or accessibility, kind of looking at color coordination in emails. Lots of these trends within your industry are going to be front of mind for your customers. So think about what are the kind of hot topics right now in the world that your business is in. The next question is, what do you think your audience should know but they don't? Again, this is a really good one in terms of educating your audience. So if you think about the type of business you run, what should your audience know but they don't, and how can you help them get there? And then the final question is, what are the top myths that you can help dispel? So there might be really common misconceptions. So for example, email marketing is really, really expensive and I can't afford it as a small business owner. Well, hopefully I've dispelled that myth for you today, but you can see how there are common misconceptions in any industry. Again, this is fantastic content because you can turn that into an email to help your audience understand how they can solve their challenges. Again, I've created some blog content on both for both service and product-based businesses on my website, so I'll share again that information at the end. But this is a really powerful way to create content without having to spend loads of time. This is a 5-minute exercise. So then it's about measuring your results, so test and learn. I touched on this earlier about, how do you know how well you're doing? This is really the best starting point is to look at your own performance and see, the other things to look at are your unsubscribe rate. That should be below 1%, ideally 0.5%. You should be looking at your hard and soft bounce rates. Are they over 1%? Then we need to look at that. There's a problem. We want to be looking at your health metrics overall just to see what's happening. Now, if you find that your audience are not engaging with you, let's say your open rates are really low, your click rates are low, you're not getting any sales, I would then take a step back and ask you, well, who is on your list? How did they arrive onto your list? Are they the right people? So many people say to me, oh, I bought this list and I'm not getting the results. I would say, don't do that. Don't buy a list, because you don't know the quality of the data on that list, and it only takes one rubbish email address on that list, one bad quality email address, to ruin your sender reputation. And that means then you're going to find it really hard to stay out of the spam filters. So please don't buy a list, because it can be really damaging to your business. The next question is, what's the right frequency? Now, this is kind of like how long is a piece of string question, and it really depends on your business. But I always advise clients to say, start at the pace you feel comfortable with. So even if it's monthly, even if it means you're getting into the rhythm of sending an email, that's better than not sending at all, because you're starting to build that trust, that credibility, that relationship. If you are a retailer, like I've got working with my clients at the moment on preparing for Black Friday, you need to be thinking about increasing your frequency just because of the type of industry you might be in. So if you're in if you're a beauty retailer, for example, I would suggest at minimum twice a month, particularly if you've got an expanding product range and you've got a lot of things to talk about. So the way you're going to know for sure is have a look at what other people are doing that are similar in your industry. Think about what you can realistically deliver. Don't feel you have to be sending 20 emails a month. Really, I'd say for the small business owners on the call here today, I'd be looking at between 1 to 2 emails a month just to get started is a good place to aim for, and that is realistic in terms of your own time. So my bonus tip here is actually around segmenting your audience. So once you have a list in place, think about the types of segments you'd like to implement. So this could be, think of it as a giant cake. Your audience is a giant cake. How do we want to divide the cake? So what are the natural groupings within your audience? So one way could be looking at the behaviors of people on your list. So that could be, for example, let's go back to the beauty retailer that I'm working with currently. We're looking at people who have only ever bought once, so one-timers. We're looking at people that have never purchased, so they're on the list, but they've never purchased a product. And then we're looking at people that have purchased 4 or more products in the last 12 months. So that's an example of segmentation. And why do we need to segment? Well, it's about talking to people in the right way based on their behaviors or the way that we've categorized them. So for example, we are going to treat our most loyal customers slightly different to the ones that have never bought from us before, because we want them to do different things. For those that have never purchased before, we obviously want to get them to purchase a product for the first time. For our loyal customers, we want to reward them, we want to make them feel special, we might want to give them some an exclusive early bird access to a new range, for example. So once we start to have a list in place, and I'd be thinking about this only once you start generating new subscribers into your list, we want to be looking at how we can split them out accordingly and speak to them in a way that that is most appropriate to them. I've included here a simple wireframe because, again, I get asked this question a lot, and I think it's just helpful for people just to see kind of the anatomy of an email. So here at the top here we have a compelling subject line. So OmniSend are a really good tool for subject lines because you essentially plug in your subject line and it gives you kind of guidance on what's going to work really well and what might get caught in spam. Then you have your preview or pre-header text. So think of this as kind of a sister to the subject line. So anything you can't fit into the subject line will spill over into the pre-header. So think of it as like a supporting actor. Then you have the body of your email. So you want some, usually we want to include some kind of bold headline. And here we can include an image or some copy or both. We can obviously make this as long as we like, but generally speaking, we want the body of the email is addressing the goal of the email that we want to deliver. So is this email about generating sales? Okay, then we need to be talking about products or services. Is this email aimed to educate? Okay, we should include a blog or like some interesting, a link to an interesting article. So think about the goal of the email. The friendly closing, depending on if you're a service provider or a product, I would say generally speaking, it's more suited to service-based businesses, but it doesn't mean you can't for products. And then a clear call to action. So what is it you want? What action do you want your audience to take? Is it to buy, to shop now? Is it to book a call? Is it to read the blog? Just make sure you're clear about that. So even just following this simple framework alone, you can't go wrong in creating a good email. Just coming to the end now of the talk, I want to just share some tools that I use on a regular basis that can help you accelerate your creation of email marketing, from your content through to whether you're kind of working on using any kind of AI tools. But Canva, I think we all know Canva. I'm using Canva now to present to you. MailerLite I've talked about, just because I think you get an awful lot for free, and that's why I talk about it a lot with small business owners. Copy AI is fantastic. It helps you write subject lines. You can also create blog content within AI. So depending on the type of business you have, and if you want to generate lots of content, you know, Copy AI is one tool. There's obviously ChatGPT and others. And SmarterQueue is more on the social media side, just in terms of time saving. It's great to kind of be able to automate your social media, and I'm all for streamlining processes and ensuring that us as business owners have some time back in our lives. I want to just share some resources that I've created over the last few months in terms of blog content. So just on my website, take a look at that. And yeah, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today and listening to my presentation. I hope it's been helpful. I ran free discovery calls for service providers, coaches, consultants, and e-commerce brands. So feel free to get in touch and let me know if there's any questions you have from today. I'm more than happy to answer your questions.